So a man walks into the bank at lunchtime and there's a stick up. And while the bank's robbed, a shot is fired and it grazes his arm. So he's slightly injured, but the whole episode passes safely for everyone involved. So what does this man tell his co-workers when he gets back to work late after lunch with a bandage on his arm? In fact, what would any of us say? So one person might say, well, just typical of me. I can't even go out to the bank at lunchtime without getting shot. I was almost killed. These days, it seems I need to just stay in the building to keep myself safe. Someone else might just gather his co-workers around to tell his story. I was involved in this bank heist. I actually got shot. He talks about how he was on the news, and on the news they spoke about how brave he was. He might even talk about how lucky he was that it was just a graze, and even though the blood was very effective, he hasn't really been hurt. And luck is an important part of this story because it's stolen and paraphrased from a book called The Luck Factor by Richard Wiseman. And he's making a point about how lucky people have different perspectives on pretty much everything. I'm telling this story because it illustrates how differently we can all see the same situation dependent upon our attitude to it and to life. So what's all this got to do with quitting your diet? My name's Michael Dawson. I'm the author of Quit Your Diet, Think to Shrink. And if you're done with meal plans, calorie counters and sins, then you might be in the right place because I'm here to help you develop your own 14-day roadmap to quitting diets forever. Free and full access might still be available on my website, actionfactorypublishing.com, or you can take my 2-minute quiz by clicking around here somewhere. In this episode, we'll explore how asking better questions can lead to better behaviors and how solution-focused breathe therapy gives us tools to make change without fixating on our weight. First, let's talk about the typical diet mindset or dogma that we've all been through. It helps develop a kind of tunnel vision or a focus on the problem, not the solution. It creates an obsession with numbers that makes it difficult to move on. It forces us to make these constant corrections, monitor things like weight, which will always fluctuate anyway. We can also get lost in loops of shame and guilt when we struggle to stay on track. In order for all this to make sense, let me talk about one or two of my favorite and most powerful change techniques in the solution-focused model. I'd used this for years with my clients and helped them make huge changes in their lives with seemingly insurmountable problems. There's a lot to this model, but for our purposes, let's just look at a few really key takeaway principles that I think are really important for where we're coming from. First of all, number one, it focuses on what's working, not what's broken. Now, most approaches dig into the past and problems and childhood and trauma. And one of my favorite quotes is from the developer of NLP, Richard Bandler. And it actually really did change my life after my childhood. And he said something like, "I had a terrible childhood, but once is enough. Thank you." And in solution-focused breathe therapy, we're always asking, when does the problem not happen? In a better way, we might be saying, when are you not as good at having your problem as you might be at other times in your life? For example, you could ask a drinker this question, and he might say, well, to be honest, it's probably Sundays. Why is this? Well, because Sunday my mother calls round every Sunday, and I don't like her seeing me wasted. She starts nagging me, da. And so you've now found a weakness or some cracks in this problem, and we can work around that. And that's the basic idea. In the realm of weight loss, this is pretty powerful because when you're not very good at having your weight properly, maybe it's when you're in certain places or with certain people. Just remember, no one's perfect. You can't have a perfect problem. It has to have cracks, and we can expand those cracks, make them bigger. And that's number one for me. It focuses on a solution rather than a problem, even though they might seem very, very different in size, i.e. your problem might seem huge and the problem with the problem might seem quite small. That doesn't matter. Number 2, it treats you as the expert in your own life. Now, you can find the video on my YouTube channel, but it forces me as the therapist to make assumptions about you, and in doing so, I speak to you differently. For example, solution-focused brief therapy assumes you already have all the tools you need to change and solve your problem. It assumes that you already have the strengths and experience to draw upon. And that can be really helpful. In SFBT, I was going to say SFBT for short, solution-focused brief therapy, I know that there's only one expert in the room, and that is not me, because I've not lived your life. I merely jump on your bus, sit behind you, and ask questions that you can answer for me, but more importantly, for yourself. So again, why does this matter to us as dieters or non-dieters? Because it breaks this cycle of dependency on meal plans, gurus, apps. You stop outsourcing control and start trusting yourself again. If you make the assumptions I talked about with yourself, then you talk to yourself differently. You can watch my videos, you can listen to me, you can read my books, but there's only ever one expert in the room, and that is not me. Thirdly, it's about small doable steps. It's not about massive overhauls. I sometimes describe it as maybe if you were sat on a sledge at the top of a hill. I always believe that the solution-focused therapy approach is me being the person that gives you that little nudge at the top of the hill. The rest is down to you. And instead of dramatic, unsustainable changes, solution-focused approach focuses on what one small thing that you could do better today. Small shifts create ripple effects. And sometime we'll talk about the scale of the problem, with 10 being awful and 1 being pretty bad. And our question is simply to ask, what small thing could get you from a 6 to a 6.25 in the coming week? This one small thing isn't measured in pounds and kilos, but might be as simple as a day or half a day in a new, positive way of thinking about yourself. Diets often demand perfection. Solution-focused work celebrates on progress over perfection. One new habit, one better choice, one hopeful thought, that's enough to start the momentum and the push. Number 4, it really builds a future worth moving towards, not a past worth running from. Instead of asking, why am I like this? Solution-focused work asks, what will be happening when things are better? It's hopeful, it's concrete, it's energizing. And by using things like the miracle question, again, it's covered in other videos, then we can work towards an imagined future that is actually better. And it helps me and my clients to build and move towards that. And it's seldom epic. I've known it to be a father who just wants a kiss from his daughter in the morning, a child just being able to get to school on time, or, taking those simple steps and celebrating those steps. Those are my top 4 reasons why I apply so many of the solution-focused approach ideas to my work, and in particular in the work of Quit Your Diet. It looks at the future. It changes our impressions of ourselves. It gives power and confidence to my clients and allows them to lead me out of their problem into this positive change. That then brings me to the point of this entire video, asking better questions, because it's not the answers you get, but the questions you ask that matter. So let me offer you what a simple, maybe one-line tool that you can use to catch and flip these negative self-talk ideas and questions that come up in your mind at the very moment. I was trying to think of how I could encapsulate this into one simple phrase, and it's this. When you have those kind of negative failure thoughts, perhaps you could say to yourself, what would I ask if I believed change was possible, that I cannot fail, that I've seen the end of the movie. This question will interrupt this kind of downward spiral of negative self-talk, and it nudges your brain to shift from criticism to curiosity. It doesn't deny the struggle, it reframes it. For example, let me tell you about the old days. In the old days when we used to go out to the cinema and watch a movie, you could go in all day long. You might come in halfway through the film. Well, if you came in at the end, you knew the hero was alive. So when you started to watch the film, he could be hanging off a cliff, he could fall off a cliff. You knew he was going to live. It's that kind of thing. The question is, what if all of this is going to work out? And I know it is. What's the next question I'm going to ask myself? Example, maybe I failed again. Why do I always mess it up? I failed at the diet. You go back to what would I ask if I believed I could get back on track? That single question becomes a mental kind of reset. It's simple. This now requires possibilities, and your answer might be, well, I'll probably see this as being a small blip on the radar in a week or two. Once I'm back on track, this incident's going to be insignificant. Once you bring in the possibility that you've got the tools, resources to bring it back, the whole attitude changes. Everything changes. I think I've summed it up there in a nutshell. You're simply saying, if I absolutely knew this ended in success, then what would I do or say now? So without giving you a full course on solution-focused breathe therapy method, that's an incredible thing to take away from this video. I do have a course on that for professionals also, but I also have a Quit Your Diet book and course that you can find around here somewhere. And I believe that there's enough content entirely for free to enable you to join us on this journey by becoming a legacy member on my website, where you can get free access to all the tools, the downloads. You will never pay if you quit and jump on now for any new stuff ever. You will become a legacy member. So I'd suggest jumping on board right now. That's it for this week, and thank you for being there. A light tap on the like button acts as a huge thank you and a way of sharing our message. It's subscribing will mean that myself and others like me might occasionally pop into your feed. I'm here every couple of days, so watch out for more Quit Your Diet hints, tips, and talking points. And remember, it's all at actionfactorypublishing.com. And don't forget that 2-minute quiz is also around here somewhere. And if you sign up right now, you will be invited anyway to our coffee mornings where we get together as a group and discuss this principle. Thanks for being there, and I'll see you next time.